Hello everyone, it's me, JUAN Gamer54 back in a video, and today you already know that just because I'm back, that doesn't mean the status quo changed, because we're back reacting to Game Theory. Did Fazbear steal everything? Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I I've been hearing a lot. I've been seeing a little bit of people saying that this video was, ooh boy. But I didn't get to know what it means. I don't know why people are saying that this video was the final straw, the final, the thing that finally broke the camel's back. But hey, we're just gonna check it out. Anyways, guys, be sure you sit back, relax, and let's go. Let's do this. No more wasting time. Second day back.
Known about FNAF was a lie.
What?
Was it? On the surface, it seems like our old favourites, William and Henry, didn't actually create anything and instead just stole it all from newcomer Edwin Murray. But how much of that is really true? And what if I told you, theorists? The answer is entirely up to you.
What you mean by that, bro?
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, and welcome to our fourth and final episode in our Secret of the Mimic extravaganza.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, I know a lot of people are mad at me or saying, bro, you're mad late. You can't just finally, because this is the fourth video. I forgot that they were doing a fourth video when I retired around August, and it's like, bro, you can't be serious. You're finally going to be finishing it off? I mean, shoot, man. I think we might as well, to be honest. That's a little bit on me, on my bad, but hey, it's better now than nothing.
Has been a wild ride, loyal theorists. We've uncovered the truth about the Murray family timeline, we've solved the mystery of Mexes, and we've managed to figure out secrets of a previously suspected mimic, Sun and Moon. But the biggest question that I have yet to solve, and the main question I had going into this game, wasn't about the mimic, or Edwin Murray, or security breach. I wanted to know the truth about the origins of Fazbear Entertainment. William and Henry. These two characters we've known about since the beginning and yet know very little about. Where did they start? How did they create this empire? Who were they, really? But friends, nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me or the rest of the internet for what we were about to witness.
Alright.
Assembly may be required.
No! Are you kidding me?
Oh my god! Oh my...
To be fair, that reaction was several hours into stream, where all we'd witnessed so far was invention after invention that we thought had been a Fazbear invention for years now, only to discover that Edwin made it. Like the Data Diver, a device used to access certain points around Murray's costume manor that looks an awful lot like the Faz wrench we use in Ruin. Or what about the massive list of characters? Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, Orville, Monty, Roxy, Moon, Foxy, Chica, Music Man, Helpy, even the wet floor bots from Security Breach share similarities to the Cleanovac. They're all
Best
here
character
in Murray's costume manor with designs, schematics, and costumes strewn around the facility. Edwin and his wife Fiona designed them all. It felt like everything we'd known over the last decade had been a complete lie. It was never William and Henry. It had all been Edwin. Or had it? See, while at first it definitely reads that way, there are clues hiding in voice memos, text logs, and just in the physical designs themselves that show us the truth is a little more nuanced. So let's jump into our unfinished helpful carts, friends, because we've got to get to the bottom of this and figure out whether William and Henry invented anything or whether they are just complete fraud.
Dang, I'm not gonna lie, bro. This is already going out strong on this one. I mean, hey, any opportunity to call William Afton a fraud is okay in my book. Henry, it's debatable. I mean, like, heck, just recently since I've been away, I've been trying to think about, is Henry really a good guy? Like, I mean, like, he's not William Afton bad, okay? You gotta really try to be as worse as Afton. But I mean, like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that Henry didn't really had some questionability. I can't speak. How is it that I've been gone and I can't speak still? But you know, Henry's hands are not as clean as we all think. But hey, let's continue.
First off, there is one important thing we have to clarify. Did William and Henry actually steal Edwin's inventions? And the short answer is no. I've mentioned in a past few theories little tidbits of information about this, but while it was clear Fazbear had some shady business practices and were actively stealing employees trying to obtain company secrets, which is not totally legal, they never actually stole Edwin's intellectual property. Edwin was a contractor, and so they would have contracted him to make stuff for them, like the demo of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that we see in the R&D department. And that whole process would have included contracts that decided ownership, which we sadly never get to see. I can tell you, though, as a former contractor myself, typically those contracts favor the client, the person who came to you to be a contractor. When I would shoot or edit a video for someone, that would then go back to them and they would own the final product. I didn't own anything. But what about Chica, who was made for Chica's Party World, not Fazbear? Or Roxy and Foxy, who were built for Edwin's TV show idea? Those were definitely Edwin's, and Fazbear surely had no rights to them. Well, until they did. One of the text logs you can obtain is from Willie A himself, and while the message is cut off a bit at the start, the intention is very clear. Quote, software development and the entire MCM catalog. We would love to keep you on as a lead engineer. Although we now technically own the land, we would never touch the house your parents built. Afton was offering Edwin a position at Fazbear because he had just bought MCM. Its remaining employees, the ground it's built on, and most importantly, its catalog of characters and inventions. Fazbear now owned everything. They never stole it from Edwin, they just stole all his employees, drove the business into the ground, and then bought the rights so that they could claim it as their own. But let's be honest here, that's kind of a small nitpick in this whole thing. The real issue here is that we believed Henry and William were these great inventors, and yet it seems like they just kind of bought everything and didn't make any of it themselves. How could Henry claim
trapped in prisons of my making
if they weren't his making at all? So let's take a look and try to clear things up. Henry may not be the originator.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure he'll probably explain it down the line, but I'm pretty sure, like, well, yes, I feel like, say that MCM made Foxy and Chica, right? Right. They own the character's license, I believe. Well, they made the character, so therefore they have the license to it. And once Fazbear Entertainment bought the license, it feels like they have bought the character, the IP of the character. So I feel like, well, yes, Edwin did make Foxy and Chica as we see them in Secrets of the Mimic. I feel like Henry made the animatronics as is. I feel like Henry made the animatronics of Chica, Foxy, Bonnie, and Freddy, and technically he can still kind of claim them as his because, hey, he's the one who made them. So it's like, yeah, it's basically like that in a way, but let's see if the decision is different.
Of most of the characters we've attributed to him over the years. R.I.P. Chica was Henry's first theory, but that doesn't mean he didn't invent any characters. From the minute you step into Murray's Costume Manor, you will find one item that appears everywhere in the facility. Pizza boxes from Fredbear's Family Diner. Now, while we are visiting MCM, the place has been abandoned for a bit. But what that means is that while the place was active, so was Fredbear's Diner. Which makes sense given Fazbear Entertainment was a thing and had the means to buy MCM in the first place.
And being a contractor.
We also see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie on a number of posters throughout the place, identical to the ones we found in Security Breach. But notice what we don't see throughout MCM. Despite promoting posters for the characters of Fredbear's, we never see versions of Fredbear or Bonnie within the main facility. And that is because of this line.
every one of my creations are available for purchase or lease.
For Edwin to be able to say that, he would have to own the rights to the characters. But the fact that Bonnie and Freddy are missing implies that those two characters were not created and owned by Edwin, but instead William and Henry. Edwin has posters on the walls because there's clearly a long-standing relationship between the two companies, and based on his audio log telling us that they should
Just
hire some teens to wear the suits like we always do.
It seems like he has worked on the diner in some way. So the posters are just him promoting himself, going, hey, you know this successful franchise? Well, I helped make that. But he can't show any of the costumes or animatronics for Fredbear and Bonnie because he doesn't own the rights. They were created and owned by William and Henry. So nice big tick for them there. But that leads us into the big discussion around Fazbear.
Spring lock assembly may be required.
No!
Whoa! Hazards that could
Are you kidding me?
Oh my god!
Ha!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Did Edwin invent the spring locks? Before this point, we've been under the impression that it was Henry who invented the spring locks, as during the Silver Eyes trilogy, we're pretty much told that outright. Quote, these are spring locks, one of the first ones Henry made. But now in Secret of the Mimic, we see plenty of springlock suits. We see messages about Edwin making them, and we even get to travel around inside them, which is kind of horrifying. However,
it was cool, but I mean, like, we got a rocket cannon. Look at it.
Whether this was another acquired contraption. The fact that we cannot be killed by the springlocks. Springlock suits are notoriously finicky, causing fatal injury at the first sign of sudden movement or water, and yet we managed to fall through an entire floor and yet sustain no injuries. It's almost as if they are not the same kind of springlocks, and that is exactly the case. We receive a text log from Edwin during the game that specifically talks about updating the springlocks to sustain water damage and be okay. There's also the fact that the original springlocks were designed to be both suit and animatronic, while the new ones seem to only really be suits. And finally, the versions of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie down in the R&D department, while looking somewhat like the versions we know, have colored exoskeletons made of metal, rather than the felt-based material that would stain and discolor like we know from modern Springtrap. And to top that off, there's an audio log in the same area that talks about springlocks being used for a long time before this moment.
It would be so much easier to keep using the spring locks.
The fact that there have been springlocks used for Hen, while these new improved metal versions of the springlocks for Fredbear and Spring Bonnie currently only exist down here in the facility, it tells us that there are other springlocked versions of these characters in existence, felt-based ones that use the old water damage prone designs. So that's it, case closed. Edwin made the new springlocks, but Henry can still have made the originals. Right? Well, I really wanted that to be true. Believe me, I did.
Nah,
When
FNAF will never let you guys rest. FNAF will never let them rest.
Message on one of the Mrs. Helpfuls to Edwin from Fiona.
I'm worried about the new suit design.
Oh, come on.
Worried about the new suit design. One of my costumers, Vic, nearly lost his hand today. All he did was spill a can of pop and the thing snapped shut like a bear trap.
Fiona is worried about Edwin's springlock designs, and the one her team member was wearing does end up having an issue with water damage. It's almost like that text log we read earlier was a response to Fiona's request to check out the problems, because Edwin was involved in the creation of the original designs. This isn't the only time Fiona is worried about Edwin rushing out designs that later cause problems either.
You have a lot of new ideas and new projects coming in. The staff can't keep up with all your changes. But I think you need to step back a little and focus on one project at a time.
This is a pattern.
You gotta listen, Edwin. You gotta listen to your wife, bro. You gotta listen to her. Most often than not, wives aren't always right. And honestly, if he is working on the spring locks, I'ma say this: you must heed her warning, bro. I came from the future, and trust me, there are a lot. Those spring locks, yeah, they cause a lot of stuff. All right, believe me.
For Edwin. He sprints through dozens of projects, moving on to the next one so fast that his previous invention isn't fully finished, leading to a bunch of failures and returns like we see in the text logs. And so the idea that these springlock suits that were incredibly dangerous and faulty were also Edwin's creations actually makes a lot of sense for his character. And yes, there is a chance that the original springlocks were potentially a collaboration between both Henry and Edwin. But right now, I'm just not sure the evidence is there. The books say that Henry was the inventor of the springlocks, but that's a very different continuity. The games have never made that claim. The closest we get is
Prisons of my making.
But here, Henry is talking about the normal animatronics, the ones that Edwin never finished. And so you could plausibly say that Henry was the one who made them. Edwin did say that Henry was the one changing the designs.
I got the change order from Hen last night. Why why change it now? Now they changed their minds when we're so close to final.
Dang.
Concepts are frankly creepy.
But he never mentioned spring locks. That doesn't make this a retcon, it's just a realigning of our understanding between the different continuities of these characters, which is basically what Secret of the Mimic did with all of the book continuities. In the novel trilogy, Henry made the spring locks, but in the games, it was Edwin. Who knows, maybe it'll turn out to be Afton in the movies. But thanks to the company failing and Edwin's eventual demise, the new spring locks for Fazbear's characters were never finished. Fazbear just had to keep using Edwin's old designs, so I guess you could say that it was karma that got Afton in the end. In more ways than one. And speaking of good old Willie A, what did he actually do? I mean, we've always known he's a bit of a scumbag, so I don't think his lack of inventions would be all that surprising. But just like I think we can still credit Henry with the creation of the normal animatronics, I think there are a couple of things Afton can be credited with creating himself. Namely, the Funtime animatronics and the Scoop. In Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, we found blueprints for these devices.
I feel like he's probably going to talk about that, I don't remember what it's called, but I know it was it was used to help carrying the Captain Springlock animatronic. Yeah, the Captain Springlock suit. I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about that one because I feel like that's similar to the Claw from Sister Location, but I don't know. It's a little iffy for me.
And they all have copyright attributed to Afton Robotics. Of course, we know that Foxy isn't his OC. That one firmly belongs to Edwin and Fiona. And the whole stomach hatch design definitely borrows from Edwin's Springlock designs. But the animatronic part, the weird wiry bodies, we don't see anything like that from Edwin. The Scoop also, of course, bears resemblance to the Springlock crane that we find.
Yeah, see? That one. I told you.
Ruin. They have the ability to scoop something out of a costume or Springlock suit or whatever. But all the stuff about remnant injection and storage, that's all Afton, baby. Which means at this point, we're pretty even. Edwin did make a lot of stuff that we thought were Henry and William, but that doesn't mean they were completely incompetent or unable to make stuff themselves. However, there is one more thing that we need to discuss. One more invention that, if it was claimed by Afton, could affect the entire timeline as we know it. You see, everyone, and I mean everyone who played this game or watched someone else play it have been very quick to point out the similarities between David Murray and Afton's son, the Crying Child. The most obvious similarity is their name. Thanks to a friend of the channel, Hyperdroid, and a handful of other theorists, last year we came to the conclusion that Crying Child's real name was also David Afton. But there's so much more to it than just a name. Their bedrooms look almost identical, and both of those
they are the same.
Houses on top of a hill near a tree and near their father's work. They're both missing mother figures in their lives, with fathers who spend too much time working. One of the collectibles we get is David Murray's purple plastic telephone, the same one we see in David Afton's bedroom, along with a bunch of other similar toys. David Afton is famously scared of Foxy, having ripped off the head of the Foxy plushie, and his brother Michael bullying him wearing a Foxy mask. David Murray also is afraid of the pirate Fox, crying when Edwin uses one of the Foxy hand puppets on his first birthday.
Roxy.
Ahoy there!
Oh, honey, you're scaring him.
Both of them.
Dang, man. That's messed up, Edwin. Don't do that, man. Don't do that to the child, bro.
Even have a birthday party for them coming up on a Saturday, only for
them
to die on that same birthday. Everything about these two feels identical to a strange degree, almost as if they're the same person. But obviously, as I've mentioned, David Murray is dead, so they cannot physically be the same person. But you know who is still alive and kicking? The thing that was created to become David Murray. M2. And this is where we hit an interesting fork in the road.
What do you
There are
mean?
two ways we can look at this information. There's the more literal approach, where the reason these two characters feel so similar is because they are the same character. M2 takes on the role of David, and Afton adopts it as his child. Or there's the less literal approach. The idea that these similarities are actually parallels designed to point us in the direction of a different kind of Fazbear theft. That they took more than Edwin's creation.
No.
They claimed his entire story. And because this is the big finale, I wanted to do something special here. Secret of the Mimic has been all about getting us to re-evaluate our past theories, our past ways of thinking. It showed us that we can't hold on to theories too tightly, that we need to be open-handed and explore all the possible options to us. And so, rather than stand here and try to convince you that one interpretation is right over the other, I wanted to present you with both options. Explore the repercussions and flaws of each of them so that you can come to your own conclusions.
Okay.
So, on the left is the ending where David Afton is...
Oh, nah. This is diabolical work. You making me want to choose. You know what? I've been gone for a while, and I'm gonna be honest, it's been only like 20 minutes of reacting to this video. So, you know what? I'm gonna do you guys something nice. We are gonna be reacting to not only this video, but we're reacting to both endings. So, I'm about to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pitch about a toe. Which one should I choose? It is right, you.
Are you chosen to take the evidence presented more literally? You want to believe that the reason that David Murray and David Afton appear to be one and the same is because they are one and the same. Or at least that both Davids are being played by the same character, M2. Interesting choice. Well, let's take a look at the evidence and see how Afton shapes up in this one.
You better convince me with this one. Oh, come on. You better convince me with this one, because ain't no way you're going to have to... Ain't no way after me coming back, my second day back, and you're going to tell me that Afton just took the mimic. At that point, it's like, dang, Crying Child's a robot after all.
This path would solve, we have to figure out the how of it all. How was William able to get control of M2 and turn it into his son, David, the Crying Child Afton? Well, that comes down to the secret ending of Secret of the Mimic. You see, in that ending, we complete Moon.exe. We get some glitched permissions that allow us to access special doors.
I enjoyed Super Horrible Mike's playthrough with that one. You guys should check it out too. It's good.
Perfect mimic of David. M2 then goes to bed and shuts off as the game fades to black. This is the only ending where M2 is completely fixed, which allows him to live on as a child, as David, and therefore, in the future, could become the Crying Child that we know from the original games. One of the text logs we get from William directly confirms that he owns the land Murray's costume manor is standing on, including the house Edwin's parents built on the top of the hill, the one that M2 now sleeps. With Fazbear's ownership of the land and the IP and the inventions inside, that M2 would now belong to William. And so, with the disappearance of Edwin, William would likely show up, at least eventually, to claim what was his. And when he did, he would come across this incredible little machine, mimicking Edwin's son, David. Now, Fazbear already knew about this special animatronic that could fit.
But, like, why, though? Why do you need it? Why would you do something like that? I mean, it's not only bad enough that I kind of... Not only were you and Fazbear Entertainment as a whole were just dogging Edwin left and right, not only do I kind of believe that William Afton is responsible for what happened to Fiona, because let's be honest, I mean, I know it's like, bro, are you really going to blame William Afton for every single tragedy in FNAF? Did he prove me wrong? Literally every tragedy can tie back to William Afton in some way, shape, or form. Yes, I'm holding on to the belief that William had a hand on what happened to Fiona. I believe he's responsible to the Fall Fest fire. Believe me. And now you mean to tell me you're taking his robotic son? I mean, well, technically, Edwin... I mean, well, let's be honest. Edwin wasn't really showing a good job. I mean, you literally beat the mimic. You literally beat the mimic when it was sounding like it. Like, sounding like your child. Even though that's the whole reason why you made it. Like, Edwin, you made it to do it like that. What you expected to do? Not obey? Come on, man.
Into any costume and learn any routine.
Someone told them about M2.
But seeing it actually imitating a child, essentially bringing a kid back to life, that would absolutely have intrigued Afton. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, it's clear how much he idolizes characters like Henry, those with animatronic and creative genius who were able to imitate the spark of life itself. He wants to reach their level of genius, to understand, to go even further beyond what they did. Sure, he could have just taken M2, turned it into scrap, or shoved it into another costume. But if he could figure out how it ticked, then he could create more and help his empire grow. It's for this reason that we see camera feeds down in the sister location bunker, displaying the FNAF 4 bedroom, the same bedroom where M2 was sleeping. He is monitoring M2, watching its every move. He threw different stimuli at it, high-pitched frequencies that mess with its vision, creating animatronics that looked like the stuff of nightmares, all to see how lifelike this thing truly was to a child. Afton was trying to understand how it worked. That's also why we see the Funtime animatronics using technology that allows them to mimic sounds and actions. It was Afton trying to replicate that same technology, but it wasn't fully there yet, because William wasn't the original creator, although they clearly did manage to mimic one thing correctly. In order not to raise suspicion, Afton would need to make
Oh, come on!
It can feel suspicion. Afton would need to make M2 look like another one of his kids. We see masks down in the sister location bunker. Afton's attempts to create realistic human costumes, one that M2 would be able to wear out and about, which is why when the Funtimes encounter Michael Afton all those years later, another one of the Afton kids, they knew what they had to do. They mimicked what they saw M2 doing all those years ago, jumping inside the skin of one of the Afton kids in order to explore the world. They were able to mimic an action, but they lacked the nuance of understanding. Just like M2 would stuff people into suits because, as far as it could tell, that's just where human bodies went. Feels like there's maybe a bigger lesson we could take away from that. But there are a bunch of other pieces of evidence from previous games that suddenly begin to line up when we continue down.
But how though? Like, what? That's what I'm trying to understand at this point. Like, why would William Afton do this? And also, it's the fact that we don't really know if Crying Child would be alive at this time around. Like, if the game is truly 1979, and, you know, the Crying Child getting bit in FNAF 4 was in the bite of 83, so 1983, that means Crying Child would be at least, by my understanding, 4 years old. But like, so unless you're trying to tell me that Crying Child was born way before we dive into Secrets of the Mimic, how, bro? How?
Train of thought. For example, why does Mike bully his brother? Of course, older brothers can just be mean sometimes. I should know, I am one. But if David Afton is actually
and I'm gonna be honest, and I'm an older brother too, and I'm sorry, Kevin. All right, shout outs to you. But sometimes I have to pick on you a little bit, Kevin, a little bit. I still love you, but you gotta understand.
robot kid wearing a skin suit and they are getting all of this attention from their father, well, that would make any kid jealous and want to lash out. They aren't his real son. Why is he getting all the attention instead of me? It's not fair. Michael then goes on to have an obsession with the show The Immortal and the Restless, which the most famous and frustrating line is,
"The baby isn't mine."
We've tried to make sense of this thing for years, but now we might finally have an answer. It's not that one of the kids was adopted or that Afton had a kid with another woman. It's literally not a baby. It's a robot mimicking another man's child, David Murray. In the security logbook, Michael even comments that he relates most to Clara, as she is the one who seems to see the world she lives in as crazy. Just like Michael doesn't understand how people can't tell that this is a weird robot kid that his dad is claiming to be his sibling. But the biggest thing that this solves is actually less to do with M2 itself and more how the mimic existing in these early parts of the timeline might solve the most infamous line in all of FNAF.
I will put you back together.
When this line first showed up, it confused the heck out of all of us. Up until this point, Afton had been speaking in a bright gold text using the color FFF57, and he starts off that way during his final speech to the dying crying child too. However, when we then get to the put you back together part, it's a paler shade of yellow.
Oh, please don't tell me it's actually
It
Fiona.
was confusing as there weren't really any other characters left
the
to claim
Mexis.
that color, nor did it make sense for it to be anyone other than Afton. It wasn't helped that in Ultimate Custom Night, when we're seemingly playing as Afton in Eternal Purgatory, we get lines from Nightmare Fredbear that repeat this idea.
Let me put you back together.
It felt like
And
Scott
take you
just
apart
made
all
a
over
mistake
again.
and used Ultimate Custom Night to rectify that mistake. But now, I offer you an alternative solution. What if the reason it's a similar color to Afton's gold text, but slightly different, is because it isn't Afton, but someone or something pretending to be Afton, mimicking him, if you will. Remember, while we've been focusing on M2 as David Afton, there's another character that Secret of the Mimic introduced.
I don't know, man. I mean, the Mimic copying William Afton. I mean, I can kind of see it. I mean, I can kind of see it, right? I mean, like, heck, for all we know, they might as well copy everyone.
Uses to us. M1, Fiona Murray. All
Dang.
she wanted to do was to put her son David back together.
I beg you, put it on the side and fix M2.
And in the secret ending, that's what she got. But then Afton swooped on in and took her son for himself. She was stuck inside the cradle, the Mex's machine. She would have been powerless to stop him. But, as we've talked about before, she was taken away and likely installed into Fazbear's system. So when Michael took things too far and got M2's head crushed inside of Fredbear, her motherly instincts kicked in. She managed to take over the walkie-talkie and speak directly to M2, promising to put her child back together again. Meanwhile, Afton would have seen M2 as broken and of no use. If anything, he'd actually kind of been an inconvenience to him based on Fredbear's dialogue. Plus, he couldn't even fix him if he wanted to. He was just trying to figure out how it worked. He hadn't actually solved it. And regardless, he now had his new fun times, who were using some kind of mimicking software. Those were
discarded.
So he threw M2 away into the bowels of the rundown facility he owned, MCM, and cemented the whole thing up to start over. But I suspect M2
makes sense with William Afton.
Edwin beat this thing to a mechanical pulp, and yet it managed to carry on. So, once again, just like in the 1970s, this violence towards M2, it getting crushed by Fredbear, taught it how to be violent again. It began to rebuild itself with spare parts, again, now waiting for someone to free it so it could take its revenge. All the while, M1 was working on putting her son back together. She was uploaded to Fazbear's system, took control of the Pizzaplex and a young woman called Vanessa. And with Vanessa's help, she was able to start rebuilding her son, a new mimic robot that looked just like David did before. So that's right, people. The Gregbot theory is alive and well. We theorized the very first security breach theory that Gregory is actually a robot version of the Crying Child. Due to just
Come on, man. Really? We're doing this again? Gregory is a robot. Look, I already hated Gregory as is, but you mean to tell me that we're now bringing him back? What, is Gregory M3 now? Because we got M1, right, who impersonated Fiona. And now the M1 program has become Mexis, right? We got M2, and if based off this theory, well, I mean, okay, parts of it, right? M2 goes on and mimics David, right? And if this theory, if we're trying to go through this theory that is true, was supposed to be, you know, William Afton swooped in, took M2 and just made him into his son. I don't know why. I don't know why he wanted to have a third child. But I mean, shoot, I mean, like, I guess, heck, I wouldn't be surprised if Crying Child looked exactly like Michael when he was a kid. Who knows? It could be. I mean, like, shoot, we have William Afton and Michael basically looking exactly alike. Who's to say that maybe Crying Child wouldn't look the same as Michael when he was a kid? Because, you know, William has just decided, hey, let me just make this robot kid that I'm about to make my own. Let me make him look like my son Michael when he was a child. No one's gonna tell the difference, right? Like, and now you're telling me that. And now you mean to tell me that that M1 Fiona has come back and supposedly makes an M3, which is now Gregory. This is just crazy. What is going on? What did I miss?
An avalanche of evidence. The fact that they look the same. The fact that Gregory doesn't have any records or parents. That he was living in the Pizzaplex. That Gregory is referred to as broken rather than injured. That when Glamrock Freddy gets Roxy's eyes, he says,
You look different to me.
that he has CRT-style vision when Vanny gets too close with what sounds like a sound illusion disc. There's his robotic actions that he takes in the books. Quote, he cocked his head and studied Tony for several seconds. And to top it all off, we have the post-it room, which is covered in notes, starting in binary, but then beginning to turn into phrases we know David Afton would have been saying.
With
like
Fiona.
party time or birthday
Or
time. Like
M1.
a robot coming into consciousness and learning the identity it's supposed to be taking on. The party was for him, after all. All the signs point to him being a robot version of the crying child. It just made so much sense. And now I present you with this image. You can find it during the parachute ending of Secret of the Mimic. And it's of David
Ooh.
sitting on top of a hill with M.
Oh, come on!
Tell me, does that look familiar to
Yes.
you? Because it should. It's almost identical to the image we get from the burn trap ending in Secret of the Mimic, with Gregory sitting on top of a hill with his protector, Glam Rock Freddy. We are once again being shown the same looking scenario because they are meant to be showing us the same characters. Gregory is M1's attempt to recreate her broken child, David, M2. That might even explain
Dang.
why we get Gregory dropping the elevator on Cassie at the end of Ruin. It could be M1 or M2 controlling the system to get Cassie to come back, or it's because Gregory is still following his programming, acting under the orders of his mother, M1, to bring the family back together. Now, before
Dang.
anyone gets too mad at this idea, I recognize it's not perfect. For starters, while there's a bunch of evidence that does work when you look at it through the lens of M2 is the crying child, the trouble is, it basically all hinges on the secret ending being the canon ending, which is
Yeah.
kind of hard to prove at this point, especially without the DLC or a sequel. Outside of that, there just isn't a lot of evidence for this line of thinking.
Besides, I mean, like, don't get it twisted. We're going to get a DLC. We're going to get a DLC, no doubt. I mean, Secrets of the Mimic is that big of a game that I really doubt that they're not going to pass. They're going to pass the opportunity. They want to have a DLC. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, I don't think Secrets of the Mimic is going to pull a rug and say the secret ending is the canon ending. If that's the case, the Burn Trap ending should have been the canon ending. But as we all saw, the secret ending, the Burn Trap ending, wasn't canon. What was canon was the Princess Quest one. So it's more in line that I either believe that I think either M1 escaping, either we give up, it's either us giving up our system. It's either the parachute or the regular ending is the true canon ending. But I'm going with the parachute one as the official ending.
You essentially have to go in with confirmation bias. The idea that your belief is correct, and so you can find evidence that works because you already believe it to be true. That's not to say that this couldn't be the answer. All I'm saying is that right now, with the evidence we have, it can feel like a bit of a stretch. There's also the issue of M2 being in the basement of Ruin. I still firmly believe that the Mimic we meet in Ruin is M2 from Secret of the Mimic. So by having M2 go on to be the crying child, you have to jump through some weird hoops to make it survive Secret of the Mimic, but still end up locked away before Ruin happens. And those hoops are entirely speculative. It's me knowing point A and point C, and essentially
But
just
without no
making
B.
up point B to fill in the gap, which isn't typically how I like to do things because it's speculative at best and fanficky at worst. There's also the small things, like why would we hear a flatline in FNAF 4 if David Afton was just a robot M2 the whole time? And of course, there's Gregbot, the most Marmite of our FNAF theories in recent years. Some people love it, and some people hate it. In fact, most people hate it. And believe me, I get it. I would love for some of our human characters to just be their own thing rather than copies of others. Plus, with M2 down in the basement, it means we end up with 3 mimics running around.
Yes.
That just feels unsatisfying from a story perspective. Let's just say Vanessa is also a robot like the movie novelization seems to imply and just have a full set. And that was kind of the point of this whole experiment. If we've learned anything from Secret of the Mimic, it was that everything we thought we knew At the end of the day, we're just theories. We don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and so we're left.
But look, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like, look, I don't got no problem with Gregory being a robot, as much as it hurts me to say, because I know people are going to say, ain't no way you're saying something so controversial after you just came back. This is your second day back, Juan. But I mean, like, at this point, I have to remind everyone, it has been revealed in the original novel trilogy that robots pretending to be humans does exist in the FNAF universe. I know it's not one-to-one to the games, but it's something that is a possibility. It's something that has happened before. Do I want Gregory to be a robot? No. Will it make me hate Gregory less if he was a robot? I mean, I hate Gregory as is. I mean, what you did to Cassie was foul, man. I quite enjoyed Cassie more than Gregory, to be honest. But like I'm trying to say, like, even if Gregory was a robot or if he's actually a human being, I'm still gonna hate him regardless. All right, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Montgomery, I dab you up, my boy. I get the hate, but like, I just don't think that Crying Child being a robot would be the case, to be honest.
To interpret what we do have, and that can be done a couple of different ways. That doesn't mean a theory is wrong necessarily. It's just that nothing can be truly said with certainty. A new game or book or heck, a toy could drop and suddenly it's back to the drawing board. We have to be open-handed with these ideas, explore all the avenues and find the answers we think work best. If you don't like this interpretation, that's okay. There's a whole other ending of this theory waiting. FNAF's lore is open to you. And to really nail that home, I'm actually going to be going live right now, after this episode goes live, with John FNAF, Rytos, ID's Fantasy, Hyperdroid, and Dorco to talk about all of these interpretations and in our live theorist talkback. So come by, say hi, and in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Hold on, I need to go and get the other one, so I'll be right back right about now. Now we're going to see that William is innocent. I almost threw up in my mouth with that one. But yes, let's go ahead.
I see the concept of a Fazbear conspiracy caught your interest. Can't say I blame you. You're a theorist. Video game conspiracies are literally what we do best. And this connection between these characters immediately seems suspicious. It couldn't just be a coincidence, right? Oh no, my friends. This rabbit hole is big. Big enough to fit every iteration of William Afton we've had throughout the years. No, not you. Get out of here. Honestly, why do you even exist? What I'm trying to say is that
you just have to smack him in his head.
Kind of
Careful, my man's head fragile.
Thanks to Secret of the Mimic, we've actually got a bunch
Burntrap already got roasted enough.
Coincidences between the original set of games and the new lore we've learnt about from this new game. Just look at one of the other important Murrays, Edwin. He is a brilliant robotics engineer whose life is defined by two things: his incredible world-changing invention
and his family,
the soul-crushing loss of his wife and son. He's a genius haunted by tragedy, whose own creations ultimately become twisted into something monstrous and turn against him, killing both him and his son. Now, flip over to what the original games told us about William Afton, a creative robotics genius whose entire family story is defined by loss and tragedy at the hands of the killer robots he created. Baby kills Elizabeth, Fredbear kills David, and Michael is then killed by the Fun Times. We also have the mysterious...
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, like, for all we know, William Afton could give no less of a dang with any of those kids. Okay, well, maybe he'll like Elizabeth, but I really doubt he likes any of his children. It's something you might have to talk about.
And absent Mrs. Afton, who we've theorized about in the past being represented by Ballora, the musical ballerina from Sister Location, mostly because of the song she sings. Why do you hide inside your walls?
I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm a little scared. I feel like it's gonna be a jump scare ready. I got the Wakanda sign ready. I'm ready for the jump scare. You ain't gonna get me this time.
Again,
I've learned.
Doesn't that sound familiar, almost like it's exactly how M1 Fiona feels. Her husband locked away inside his walls, trying to work on projects, not spending any time with her.
I miss you.
All with the
Dang.
room of their dead child laying empty, waiting to be filled by M2. But wait, there's more! There's the old house on the hill with a secret underground workshop, the Murray house above MCM, and the Afton house above sister location. There's a robot designed to be a babysitter that essentially fails at their duty. Security puppet was designed to protect Charlie, yet she dies, and M1 Fiona, who was designed to protect David, and yet he also dies on her watch. There's the burning down of a facility, but the main villain survives it. There's mysterious molten metal that works as a kind of power supply for the machines created, giving them life, as it were. You have the primary villains of the franchise, Afton and M1 Fiona, wanting to put their children back together. And there's then the wonderful and ever underutilized baby, who gained sentience after the accidental death of William Afton's daughter, Elizabeth. William then rejects her, banishing her to a secret underground lair he built beneath the house. A near beat-for-beat parallel of M2's story of rejection from Edwin. I could go on, but I think you get the point. The
similarities are crazy.
Stories from older games paralleled the stories of the Murray family cannot be purely coincidence. It's a pattern. They say history is doomed to repeat itself, but when it's this much, and when it involves as shady a company as Fazbear, you know there's something more going on. And that something is bigger than I could have ever imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason these things all line up so perfectly is for one simple reason. The stories from the first 7 games, the ones that told us everything we knew about Henry, Charlie, William, Elizabeth, Michael, and David, are entirely made up. Now,
Are you kidding me, bruh? Bruh, I just got back from watching the first one, and you mean to tell me that it's all made up? Even the 7 games? Dang, bruh. I can kind of see the hatred now. I might have to make a video. I might have to make a follow-up video with this one, bro. Cause I'm not gonna lie, I've been bamboozled. I've been bamboozled twice. How?
to some degree, we knew this already. In my theory crafting livestream, I kept bringing up the idea that in Help Wanted, we are told point blank that the games were just that, games.
Were total fabrications from the mind
I mean, yeah, I mean...
The books corroborated this with stories like The Monty Within, where kids refer to Pizzeria Simulator as an in-universe game, where the mediocre melodies come from. But we also learned from Tape Girl that the whole indie dev story wasn't entirely truthful.
It's an elaborate cover-up to make light of what happened.
And so we basically used that line as a way to explain away some of the inconsistencies, but really the stories were just as we originally thought. However, since then, we've had a few more pieces of evidence that would seem to suggest they're not fictionalized versions of real events, they're just fiction. One of the earliest stories from Tales from the Pizza Box is Help Wanted. And in it, we learn about Steve Snodgrass, a developer that was hired by Fazbear to make the first 3 to 4 games to make light of the rumors of murder and death surrounding the business. But as he works on it, his mind begins to fall apart thanks to sound illusion discs. Not only did Fazbear never tell him what the story really was, he was working purely on rumors, he was also being driven insane. So how trustworthy is that? And in the Walmart exclusive Tales story Monster, we're going...
You're bringing up that? Shoot, man, I'm not gonna lie. You bringing up that one? I didn't even get my... to be honest, that Walmart exclusive is haunting me in my dreams, to be honest. I feel so ashamed of myself that I didn't get it. But unfortunately, your bro was a your gamer was a broke gamer. Alright, I couldn't get my hands on nothing back in the day. So, like, this is on me.
That deep here, we learn about a kid who writes stories about a pizzeria owner in the local paper, claiming that he is a serial killer and abuser, turning the whole town against him. In fact, the stories he whips up sound an awful lot like the FNAF 1 newspapers we see in the game. But throughout the story, we're told explicitly that these stories are completely fictional, fabrications made up by a kid with a grudge. And if that's the case, we're being shown that these FNAF 1 newspapers...
I'm sorry, what? So the kid just had a grudge on the pizza man and you decided to ruin his reputation? Is that it? Man, are we sure that's not Gregory? Are you sure that's not Gregory? Because that's something seems like Gregory would do.
Also can't be trusted. And with that in mind, it makes you question what else can be trusted. Of course, I'm not saying that
Oh, come on!
Absolutely everything is fake. If we have corroborating evidence, especially from the steel wool era of games, the ones that took that meta approach and revealed to us the real world that these games existed in, then we should be good to go. Like, we do know that William and Henry existed. They're mentioned in Secret of the Mimic audio and text logs. Likewise, a FNAF 6 location definitely existed because we find it underneath the pizza place. And clearly, there was an incident or incidents that Fazbear wanted to cover up with a set of video games in the first place, as we told about in Help Wanted. However, what I'm saying is, what caused those events might now be something entirely different, because outside of those in-universe games, we don't really have any evidence for them, and so we can't rely on them as 100% true, or even rely on them happening as we saw them at all. And when you open up that can of worms, suddenly everything we thought we knew is thrown into question. Was William Afton actually a murderer, or just an awful business owner? Did Michael die and come back to life as a purple husk? Was anything ever really possessed by spirits to begin with? Maybe instead of a murdery business owner with a bunch of ghost children possessing animatronics, it was always just a rogue AI that Fazbear got their hands on, they couldn't control, and had a habit of stuffing people into suits that could also mimic the behavior and voices of children. I mean, Scott did say that was the kind of story he was more interested in telling.
I know there's a little bit of a divide with maybe me and the fan base have a tendency to lean sci-fi, even though I try to come back into the roots of the supernatural. So anything that involves possession of AI or possession of machines or circuitry, I love that sort of thing.
That would be an absolute PR nightmare. In fact, it would have been more than a nightmare. It would have been the PR apocalypse, admitting to the world, our proprietary self-learning...
Right. Very fitting, because I know what FNAF book I'm reading next. The Animatronic Apocalypse. Boy, I forgot. I'm way behind on that. But hey man, it's all good, cause I think I got it all settled.
AI has absorbed the trauma of its creator, developed a violent streak, and has now started stuffing customers into animatronic suits. We don't know how to stop it, and we are liable for all of it. That would be the end of the company. But if you had a scapegoat, like a jerk boss who happened to die on the premises in one of their faulty spring-lock suits, oh yeah, it was totally him. Our founder was secretly a monster. We all knew he was a jerk, but we didn't think he'd go this far. He did everything, but it's over now. The monster's gone. Case closed. And things like FNAF 6. Was it a gathering of ghosts, or was it a corporate cleanup? A recall, where Fazbear did what it could to contain their rogue AI, sending something like a recall signal, or a specific frequency or data packet that would force any machine running the Mimic program to be drawn to one location. And that famous speech, it isn't a heartfelt eulogy, it's Fazbear cementing Afton's role as the fictional villain, putting a final neat bow on their scapegoat, with the real fire probably just being a calculated attempt to destroy all the evidence of their rogue AI. And for a while, they probably thought they succeeded. And so they built the Pizzaplex on top of the old establishment, only to reintroduce the Mimic via some old circuit boards. William Afton, his family, their story was created to turn Fazbear's failure in stopping the mechanical mess they adopted into a spoopy ghost story. And not only did they rewrite Afton's history, but to be sure that people wouldn't trace it back to their acquisition of Murray's Costume Manor and Edwin's Mimic, they took parts of Edwin's story and planted it onto their founders. Fiona was a puppeteer, and so M1 was translated into a puppet created by Henry to protect his child. One of the most dramatic events of Edwin's life, the death of his son, became the death of Afton's son, the Bite of 83. The echoes of M1's Fiona's grief over her lack of connection with Edwin after the death of their son turned into a verse from a video game. Ghost's Lament. One of M1's final messages to Edwin,
"It is me. I'm Fiona,"
became the words screamed by another overarching and vengeful spirit. Even the words that Edwin actually spoke to M1 Fiona about M2, that it could never replace his real son, are now just the infamously confusing line we hear in a fictional show.
The baby isn't mine.
Fazbear may not have stolen Edwin's inventions, but they did steal his story, twisting it and removing all memory of Edwin and his contributions from the equation. His merits and faults split apart and grafted projected onto a scapegoat to keep it all in-house, while also absolving themselves of all wrongdoing. But
Dang.
while I think there is a lot of evidence to support this whole idea, from the parallels in the games, lines in the books, even Scott himself, there's just one issue that I cannot shake. It kind of sucks as an answer. It's basically turning around and telling us, yeah, the last 10 years of theorizing, it doesn't matter, start over. And that is just super disheartening for us fans who have spent all those years trying desperately to take small pieces of the puzzle.
I mean, let's be honest at this point. Like, bro, I just got back, and after reacting to this and after hearing both ends, I know this one hasn't ended yet, but like, bro, come on. You tugging my heartstrings on this one. This is my second day back. And you mean to tell me that this happened? Why has no one alerted me? Like, bro, I can kind of see why people be hating. And this hurts me.
Put them together in such a way that we create a cohesive story. We've spent 10 years building up our ideas of Afton, of Henry, of the crying child, only for this idea to essentially flush them down the drain. It's one of the reasons why some of the early reactions to Secret of the Mimic's lore were so angry and frustrated, because Secret of the Mimic's whole thing was revealing to all of us that we didn't really know the truth about what was going on, even though we thought we did. It was revealing information we basically had no way of knowing until very recently, which is tough compared to the, quote, good old days, where even though solving FNAF was hard, it felt like the pieces were all there for us to use, rather than key information being withheld for the sake of a twist. And this theory would kind of just perpetuate that idea. It would also make theorizing incredibly challenging going forward, at least more than it already is. We can speculate about how some elements might fit together, as I've done a little bit today, but it's just that, speculation, because we don't have any sense of how much those old games can even be used as evidence. I'm sure a bunch of you out there hate this idea. Heck, I don't really like it either. We here at Theorist have been big proponents of Scott rebooting the franchise and its story for quite some time. This, however, wasn't what we meant. But there is some hope, because this, like every video, is a theory. And if Secret of the Mimic taught us anything, it's that we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle at this point. All we can do is interpret what we have as best we can. And that can be done in a couple of different ways, like we've done with today's theory. If this ending isn't up your Bonnie bowling alley, you can always go and check out the other ending for today's theory that is a little more on the keep everything canon side. At the end of the day, the important thing is that we are open-handed, be willing to explore all the avenues and work together, because that is how we solve this weird and wonderful franchise. And right now, I'm going to be doing just that by going live with John FNAF, Rytos, Heidi's Fantasy, Hyperdroid, and Game Theory.
All right. We're done. We're done. And I'm pretty sure all of you know what I'm going to be feeling, right? You know, I feel like this is the part where I tell you guys, like, what do you tell me what you guys think. But honestly, I'm a little late to the party. You guys already know what you think of this. And honestly, after finally coming back, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I feel like I need to put a statement on this one. I need to bloody make a statement on this one, because my head hurts, to be honest. So, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to make a separate. I'm about to make a follow-up video, right? Because there was more things. This theory, right? Basically, 3 theories in one has made a war cry of a lot of people, right? And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, I might do it, but look, all I know is that we need to have a sit down on this one. We might need a talk on this one, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. My head hurts, so please subscribe to the channel. It will help me calm down a little bit. Maybe I'll probably make a follow-up video if you guys are interested, because I've seen a lot of people talk about, the backlash of this video. So maybe if you guys give me a day, maybe Sunday, I can make a follow-up video on this one. Who knows? We'll just have to see. Or maybe you have to let me know in the comment section. Maybe like subscribe, and maybe get this video to maybe 200 likes. 200 likes, and I'll make the follow-up video. Probably. Who knows? All I know is that I am going to rest, because I think this video might have broke me in levels I didn't think possible. So, thank you guys so much for watching. JUAN Gamer 54 signing off and going to bed.